The great silver doors opened with a loud bang that echoed through the huge chamber. Dongwu walked inside alone, wearing his best black suit. His shoes made soft clicking sounds on the smooth stone floor that stretched far ahead of him. The galactic council chamber was bigger than any building he had ever seen. The ceiling was so high he could barely see it in the dim light. 12 different types of aliens sat in a perfect circle around the center of the room. Each one looked completely different from the others. Their eyes glowed with strange colors in the darkness. Some had multiple arms, others had no arms at all. One looked like a giant insect, another looked like moving liquid. The air smelled like metal and something sour that made his nose wrinkle. Dongwu had been Earth's voice to these aliens for 10 long years. He knew all their tricks and games. They built everything big to make visitors feel small and scared. The Vorthek aliens had teeth like knives, and they clicked them loudly to frighten people. The Nexari aliens had skin like broken glass, and they hummed sounds that hurt most creatures' ears. The Merendi aliens looked like giant slugs, and they oozed green slime when they were angry. The lead alien was called Zek Tar. He looked like a huge praying mantis, but with 4 arms instead of 2. His voice was deep and loud like thunder when he spoke. All the other aliens were quiet when he talked because he was their leader. Zek Tar pointed one of his sharp claws at Dongwu. Human, your people have done something very bad. The attack on our mining station was wrong and cruel. Dong Wu felt his hands clench into fists, but he kept his face calm. He knew the real truth about what happened. The mining station was not just mining rocks, it was destroying a whole planet where 3,000 human families lived. The humans had built homes and farms there. They had children who played in the fields and old people who wanted to live in peace. The alien mining machines poisoned the water and filled the air with toxic dust. The human children got sick and could not breathe properly. The crops died and the animals ran away. When the human families asked the aliens to please stop destroying their home, the aliens shot at them with laser weapons. The humans only fought back to protect their families. Dongwu looked straight at Zek Tar. Counselor, we have proof that shows your people attacked first. Silence, Zek Tar shouted so loud that dust fell from the ceiling. The council has already decided what happened. We do not want to hear your lies. Humanity will pay 50 billion credits to fix the damage. Your people cannot travel to new planets anymore. No human ship can leave your space without asking U.S. first. All the other aliens nodded their heads or made sounds of agreement. They had planned this meeting for many months. Humanity was growing too fast and becoming too strong. The aliens wanted to stop humans before they became too powerful to control. Dongwu looked around the huge chamber at all the alien faces. He had spent years trying to make friends with these creatures. He thought they could be reasonable and fair. He believed that talking and being polite could solve problems, but now he could see the truth in their glowing eyes. They were not afraid of humans because humans were violent. They were afraid because humans were free. Si Dongwu said very quietly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black device. It looked like a phone, but it was much more advanced. With one push of a button, he sent a secret message to every human ship station and colony in the entire galaxy. The message was very short, but very clear. Come home. What did you just do? Zek Tar demanded. His voice was even louder than before, and his 4 arms waved in the air. Dong Wu fixed his tie and looked directly into the giant alien's compound eyes. I'm calling our people home, Counselor, all of them, every single human in the galaxy. You cannot refuse what the council has decided. Zek Tar screamed, watch us. Dongwu turned around and started walking toward the silver doors. Humanity no longer recognizes the Galactic Council. We reject your laws, your punishments, and your authority over us. The entire chamber exploded with angry voices and strange alien sounds. Some aliens roared, others hissed, and a few made noises like breaking glass. But Dongwu did not look back or slow down. He walked steadily toward the exitway. You cannot just leave, Zek Tar called after him. This is not how things work. Dongwu stopped at the doors and turned around one last time. You made your choice, Counselor. You decided that humans were too dangerous to be treated fairly. Now you will learn what it really means when humans are not here to help you, but we need human workers and scientists, protested one of the other aliens. Then you should have thought of that before you tried to make us your slaves, Dongwu replied. The chamber was full of confused and frightened voices as the aliens realized what was happening. Humans were not just workers or soldiers or scientists. They were everywhere in the galaxy doing jobs that kept everything running smoothly as Dongwu walked. Through the silver doors, he allowed himself a small smile. The first part of their plan was working perfectly. The aliens thought they were punishing humanity, but they had no idea what they had just done to themselves outside in the corridor Dong. Wu pressed another button on his device. This message went to Earth and to the human leadership Phase 1, complete. He typed begin Phase 2 immediately back. In the chamber, the aliens were starting to panic. They were sending messages to their home worlds trying to figure out what to do next, but it was already too late. The humans were coming home, and when they left their jobs, the entire galaxy would discover just how much they had depended on Earth's children. Dong Wu walked through the space station toward his ship. He passed aliens from dozens of different worlds who were going about their normal business, buying food, trading goods, and meeting with friends. Most of them barely noticed the humans who worked among them. They thought humans were just another species, nothing special or important. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Within hours, every human in the galaxy would receive the recall message, and they would all start coming home. They would leave their jobs on space stations, their research projects on alien worlds, their medical work in alien hospitals, and their engineering jobs that kept everything running. The aliens had wanted to clip humanity's wings to keep them from growing too powerful. Instead, they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. They had forgotten that humans were not just workers. They were the ones who solved problems that no one else could solve. They were the ones who fixed things when they broke. They were the ones who made everything work better. As Dongwu's ship lifted off from the space station, he looked back at the huge structure through his window. Soon it would be struggling to function without human maintenance crews, human security teams, and human administrators. The aliens were about to discover that they had built their civilization on human innovation and creativity. The recall had begun, and there was no going back. Captain Yuna received the recall signal while her cargo ship was docked at Proxima Station. She was loading medical supplies that would save thousands of lives on the outer rim planets, but when the message came through her personal communicator, she stopped everything. The message was clear and simple. All humans returned to Earth immediately. No questions, no delays, no exceptions. Yun had been flying cargo ships between the stars for 5 long years. She knew every trade route, every space station, and every shortcut in this part of the galaxy. More importantly, she knew which aliens could be trusted and which ones would try to stop humans from leaving. She looked around the busy loading dock where aliens from 20 different worlds worked together moving goods and supplies. Most of them had no idea what was about to happen. They thought humans were just another worker species, useful but not essential. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Within 6 hours, human ships throughout the galaxy began moving toward Earth. It was not just the obvious ones like military vessels or exploration ships. The maintenance crews who kept the space stations running were leaving. The engineers who designed the faster-than-light drives were packing their tools. The doctors who treated diseases that alien medicine could not cure were closing their clinics. The teachers who educated alien children alongside human ones were saying goodbye to their students at Kepler Trading. Hub Jin-ho was finishing his shift as head of security when the recall message came through. He stood in the control room looking out at the huge marketplace where he had worked for 8 long years. Tomorrow this place would be in chaos, but he had his orders. Jin-ho gathered his team of 12 human security officers. They controlled the station's defense systems, managed the financial networks, and maintained the artificial gravity. Without them, the station would fall apart within days. But that was not their problem anymore. The aliens who ran the station did not understand how much they depended on human workers. The security systems had been designed by humans and improved by humans over many years. The alien technicians had manuals and training, but when something went wrong, they always called for Jin-ho or his team. Pack everything we own, Jin-ho told his officers. We leave nothing behind that could be used against Earth. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, Dr. Hai Jin was treating a terrible plague that had been killing the native Tellurian population for months. Her research was very close to finding a cure that could save millions of lives. The recall message made her stop working for only a moment. Then she copied all her research onto storage devices and prepared to leave if the council wanted to play games with human lives. They would have to solve their own problems. The Tellurians had always been kind to human colonists, but their government had voted to support the Council's punishment of humanity. Now their people would die while the cure left with the only doctor who understood the disease. The most dramatic evacuation happened at the Nexus research station where human scientist Min-Ho was working on quantum fold technology that could change space travel forever. The project was a joint effort between 5 different alien species, and Min-Ho's team had just solved the biggest problem that had stumped everyone for years. "You cannot leave now," pleaded his Nixari colleague. Her crystal skin flashed desperate colors that showed her panic. "We are so close to finishing the project." Min-Ho felt sorry for her, but his orders were clear. "I'm sorry, Velani, the Council has made their feelings about humans very clear. They do not want our cooperation." As his team packed their equipment, Min-Ho made sure to delete all the human contributions to the project. The aliens would have to start over from the beginning, and without human creativity and intuition, they might never solve the remaining problems. The human research team had been the heart of the project. They were the ones who thought of solutions that should not work, but somehow did. They were the ones who saw connections that others missed. They were the ones who took impossible problems and made them simple across the galaxy. The same scene played out thousands of times. Humans politely excused themselves from their jobs and headed home. They took their knowledge, their skills, and their innovations with them. Most aliens barely noticed at first. Humans were useful, but surely not essential to galactic civilization. At the great manufacturing world of Industria 7, the human engineering team was responsible for keeping the automated factories running. The production lines had been designed by humans, modified by humans, and maintained by humans for over 15 years. Every improvement, every efficiency upgrade, every safety protocol had come from human minds. When the recall message arrived, Chief Engineer Tejo looked around the massive factory floor. Millions of products were made here every day, feeding the needs of dozens of alien worlds. Tomorrow, when his team was gone, the machines would start breaking down one by one. The alien supervisors had the instruction manuals, but they did not understand the clever modifications that human engineers had made over the years. Every system had been improved beyond its original design, often in ways that seemed impossible but worked perfectly. On the medical station orbiting Rigel 7, Dr. Su-Jin was the head of the Cross-Species Disease Research Center. She had spent 12 years learning how to treat illnesses that jumped between different alien races. Her knowledge had saved countless lives and prevented several major pandemics. The recall message came just as she was about to publish research on a new treatment that could stop the spread of the Arcturus fever. The disease had been killing aliens across 3 star systems, but her cure could end the outbreak completely. Dr. Su-Jin looked at her research one last time, then deleted everything from the station computers. She copied her work onto a portable drive that she would take back to Earth. If the aliens wanted to treat humans as enemies, they could solve their own medical problems. The economic impact was even more devastating than anyone realized. Human traders had been the backbone of interstellar commerce. For decades, they were not the only ones who could buy and sell goods, but they were the only ones who could do it efficiently. Merchant Captain Kyung-ho had been trading between alien worlds for 20 years. He knew which planets needed what products, when to buy low and sell high, and how to negotiate deals that seemed impossible. His ship carried goods from the inner systems to the outer rim and brought back rare materials that fed the galactic economy. When the recall message arrived, he was in the middle of arranging a massive trade deal that would supply food to 3 different star systems. Now that deal would never happen, and those systems would have to find food somewhere else if they could. Human traders had an amazing ability to predict market trends, spot profitable opportunities, and negotiate contracts that made everyone happy. They understood alien psychology in ways that helped them close deals that others could not even attempt. Within hours of the recall message, trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades began to break down. Shipments were delayed, contracts went unfulfilled, and prices started changing wildly. The carefully balanced galactic economy built over centuries started to shake like a house of cards in an earthquake. But this was just the beginning. The real disaster was yet to come. The first signs of trouble appeared within 2 days on Proxima Station. The artificial gravity began to flicker on and off like a broken light. The human engineering team had been the only ones who truly understood the ancient gravity generators. That kept the station habitable. Station Administrator Gex Low floated helplessly in zero gravity as emergency lights flashed red throughout the corridors. His crystal skin had turned a sickly yellow color that meant he was extremely stressed and afraid everything was going wrong at once, and he did not know how to fix any of it. Get me? The human engineers he commanded, his assistant, who was also floating in the air, sir. They left yesterday with all the other humans. The assistant's voice was shaky with fear. The reality hit Gex Low like a physical punch to his crystal body. Humans had not just been workers on his station. They had been the troubleshooters, the problem solvers, the ones who could fix anything that broke. Without them, Proxima Station was slowly dying. The main computer system started failing next. The humans had not just operated the computers, they had improved them over many years with small modifications and clever programming tricks that made everything work better. The alien technicians had the basic manuals, but they could not understand the improvements at the hegemony mining operation on Kepler 442b. Operations Director Theknon was facing a complete shutdown. The automated mining systems had broken down, and the backup systems were failing one by one. The problem was simple. The entire operation had been designed by humans, improved by humans, and maintained by humans for over 20 years. The alien technicians had blueprints and instruction manuals, but they could not understand the creative modifications that human engineers had made over the decades. Every system had been upgraded beyond its original specifications, often in ways that seemed impossible but somehow worked perfectly. Where are the humans who designed this? Theknon demanded as alarms blared throughout the mining complex. Gone, sir. They left on the last transport to Earth, reported his chief engineer. All of them, even the maintenance workers? Yes, sir, even the janitor. He apparently knew more about the power systems than any of our trained technicians. The situation was even worse in the Outer Rim, where human medical teams had been fighting diseases and treating injuries that alien medicine could not handle. Dr. Sujin had been the leading expert on cross-species infection, and her sudden departure left hospitals across 3-star systems scrambling to treat patients they no longer understood. On Research Station Gamma, the remaining alien scientists stared at computer screens full of equations that made no sense. The quantum fold project had been 90% complete, but the final 10% required insights that only human minds seemed capable of making. How did they solve the power coupling problem? Asked the lead Vorthak scientist, his razor teeth clicking with frustration. The human Minho said it was obvious once you stopped thinking about it, logically replied his Nexari colleague. That makes no sense, no. But it worked. This was the problem everywhere. Humans did not just follow procedures and manuals like other species. They improvised, they experimented, they found solutions that should not work but somehow did. They saw patterns and connections that escaped even the most intelligent aliens. The economic collapse was getting worse every day. Human traders had been more than just merchants. They had been the ones who understood supply and demand across dozens of different worlds. They knew when to buy, when to sell, and how to move goods efficiently. Between Star Systems, Captain Merchant Kyung Ho had been responsible for organizing trade routes that supplied food, medicine, and raw materials to over 50 different planets. His knowledge of alien cultures, markets, and logistics had kept the galactic economy running smoothly. Now that he was gone, those trade routes were falling apart within a week. Shipments that should have taken days were taking weeks to arrange. Prices for basic goods like food and medicine began to rise rapidly. Some planets started running out of essential supplies, while others had too much of things nobody wanted. The Nexari Parliament met in emergency session as their crystal cities began to flicker and dim. The humans had maintained the power grids that kept their civilization running. Without human engineers, the ancient energy systems were breaking down. The Vorthek hierarchy howled in rage as their conquest fleets found themselves stranded in space. The navigation systems that guided their warships had been designed by human scientists. Years of improvements and modifications had made the systems incredibly advanced, but now nobody understood how they worked. On the medical world of Sanctuary, the alien doctors watched helplessly as patients died from Diseases that had been easily treatable just days before. The human medical staff had not just treated patients, they had trained alien doctors in new techniques and procedures. Now that knowledge was walking out the door. Chunho had been the head of emergency medicine for 8 years. He had taught alien doctors how to perform surgeries that saved lives across multiple species. His techniques had been adopted by hospitals throughout the galaxy, but he had never written them down in a way that aliens could understand. Without human guidance, the research stations were shutting down one by one. The great project to map dark matter had been led by human physicist Dr. Young Jin. His team had been close to a breakthrough that could revolutionize space travel, but now the project was abandoned because nobody else understood his theories. Even simple maintenance tasks became impossible without humans. The life support systems on most space stations had been upgraded and modified by human engineers over the years. The alien technicians knew how to perform basic repairs, but when something unusual went wrong, they were helpless. Station after station began to experience problems. Power failures, water recycling breakdowns, air purification system crashes. Things that had worked perfectly for years suddenly started breaking down without human maintenance crews to fix them. The aliens had built an amazing galactic civilization over thousands of years, but somewhere along the way they had become dependent on human innovation and creativity. Without realizing it, humans had quietly made everything work better. And now that they were gone, the cracks in the system were starting to show. Council leader Zektar sat in his private chamber receiving reports of disasters from across the galaxy. Each message was worse than the last. Production down 60% on 17 worlds, transportation networks failing. Medical emergencies declared in 4-star systems. Research projects abandoned everywhere. How is this possible? He asked his advisors. Less than 1/100% of the galactic population, and their absence is destroying everything. The answer was becoming clear. Humans were not just another worker species, they were the glue that held galactic civilization together. Their unique way of thinking, their ability to solve impossible problems, and their talent for making things work better had become essential to everything the Council had thought. They were punishing a troublesome species. Instead, they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. 2 weeks after the human exodus, emergency meetings were being called across the galaxy. The Nexari Parliament met in continuous session as their crystal cities flickered like dying stars. The Vorthak hierarchy gathered their war chiefs, but their ships could not navigate properly without human-designed systems. The Morendi Consortium watched their trade networks collapse as shipments went to the wrong planets or disappeared entirely. Council leader Zektar stood before the emergency assembly. In the great chamber where he had dismissed Dongwu just weeks before, the room felt different now. Instead of the confident authority he once commanded, there was fear and desperation in the air. The reports keep coming in, he announced to the gathered aliens, and each one is worse than the last. Our civilization is falling apart. Senator Qel Tar of the Morendi Consortium spoke first. His slug-like body was oozing stress chemicals that made the air thick and sour. The humans have destroyed us. Our shipping lanes are in chaos. Our research projects have stopped completely. Our medical facilities are closing because we cannot treat diseases that human doctors handled easily. The Tellurian representative, Ambassador Vexen, was next to speak. Her people were dying by the thousands as the plague that Dr. Haijin had been treating spread without control. We must bring the humans back immediately. Pride means nothing when our people are suffering and dying. Impossible, Zektar replied, though his voice had lost its usual power. The Council cannot show weakness. If we give in to human demands now, every species in the galaxy will think they can defy our authority. But even as he spoke, Zektar knew the truth. The humans had not just been useful members of galactic society, they had been absolutely essential. Their unique combination of creativity, adaptability, and problem-solving ability had made them invaluable in ways that nobody had understood until they were gone. The reports kept flooding in from every corner of galactic space. The great manufacturing world of Industria 7 had shut down completely when its human-designed automation systems failed. The research station at Gamma Centauri had lost 3 major experiments when human safety protocols were ignored. Even the Council's own headquarters was experiencing power problems because the human maintenance team had been the only ones who understood the ancient energy systems, how many humans were scattered among us, asked the Zirathi delegate, her metallic voice carrying something that might have been fear. Our latest estimates suggest approximately 12 million. Humans were working throughout our territories, replied the council's chief administrator. They represented less than 0.1% of the total galactic population. The chamber fell completely silent. 12 million individuals out of a galactic population of over 15 trillion. Less than 1/100%, and their absence was bringing the greatest civilization in the galaxy to its knees. How is this even possible? Whispered the draconian ambassador. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Yel Koth, the council's chief researcher on alien species, had been studying human behavior for decades. His work had been largely ignored until now, but suddenly everyone wanted to hear what he had to say. Humans are completely different from us, he explained to the hushed assembly. Most species develop along predictable paths. We become specialists, masters of particular skills or areas of knowledge, but humans are generalists. They can adapt to any situation, learn any skill, and solve any problem. Different. How? Demanded Zektar. We think in patterns and established procedures, he continued. When we encounter a problem, we look for the correct solution in our databases and manuals. Humans make things up, they improvise. They find solutions that should not work, but somehow do. They see connections that we miss because we are not programmed to look for them. The terrible truth was becoming clear to everyone in the chamber. Galactic civilization had become dependent on human creativity and innovation without anyone realizing it. The aliens had the knowledge, the technology, and the resources, but humans had provided the spark of genius that kept everything running smoothly. When our machines break down, we follow repair procedures. When humans' machines break down, they figure out new ways to fix them better than before. When we face a new disease, we research existing treatments. When humans face a new disease, they invent completely new cures. We have to bring them back, said the Nexari senator, her crystal skin pulsing with urgent colors. The humans will not come back, replied another voice. They will not trust us again after what we did to them. All eyes turned to see who had spoken. It was Ambassador Dongwu, standing calmly in the chamber entrance. He had returned, but not as a beggar or supplicant. He carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who held all the power in the negotiation. You came back, Zektar said, unable to hide the relief and hope in his voice. I came to deliver Earth's response, Dongwu replied calmly. Humanity is willing to discuss terms for our return. What are your terms? Zektar asked quickly. Dongwu smiled slightly. First, the 50 billion credit fine is completely cancelled. Earth owes nothing for defending our colonists against illegal mining operations, agreed. Zektar said so fast that several other councilors looked shocked. Second, humanity's expansion rights are fully restored. Human colonies will be protected under galactic law, not subject to the desires of mining corporations or military powers. Also agreed. Third, humans will have equal representation on this council, not observer status, not junior membership, but full voting rights as equals. This caused an uproar among the aliens. The Vorthek delegates snarled, that is impossible. Your species is too young, too primitive, too. What? Dongwu interrupted. Too effective, too innovative, too necessary for your survival. The Vorthak fell silent, his razor teeth clicking nervously. Fourth, any species that attacks human colonies or citizens will face immediate economic sanctions. No human will work for trade with or assist any aggressor until full reparations are made. The implications hit the room like a bomb. Economic sanctions, backed by human withdrawal, would be devastating to any species that depended on human skills and knowledge. You are asking us to make humans untouchable, protested the Nexari senator. I am asking you to treat humans with the same respect you demand for yourselves. Dongwu replied, the same protection you give to any council member. And if we refuse these terms? Asked the draconian ambassador. Dong Wu walked to the chamber window and looked out at the council complex. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved through the traffic lanes, but many were drifting powerless, waiting for repair crews that no longer existed. Then humanity will continue to develop alone, he said without turning around. We will solve our own problems, build our own technology, create our own civilization, and in 50 years, when you are still struggling with the same issues that human engineers used to fix in minutes, you will understand what you have lost. The aliens exchanged worried glances. They all knew he was right. There is one more condition, Dongwu said, returning to face them. These terms are permanent. If the Council ever tries to restrict or punish humanity again, the exodus will be immediate and final. No negotiations, no second chances. You are demanding that we make ourselves dependent on you. Accused the Merendi representative. You made yourselves dependent on us, Dongwu corrected. We just did not realize it until you forced us to leave. The question now is whether you want to acknowledge that dependency officially or pretend it does not exist until the next crisis destroys you completely. Zek Tar looked around the table at his fellow counselors. He could see the answer in their desperate eyes. The past 2 weeks had been a complete disaster. Their proud civilizations were crumbling without human support, and everyone knew it. We accept your terms, he said finally. Dongwu pressed a button on his communicator. Earth Control, this is Ambassador Dongwu. Begin Phase 2. What is Phase 2? asked the Nixari senator nervously. The return, Dongwu replied. Our people are coming back, but this time they are coming back as equals. The private meeting room was much smaller than the great council chamber, but the tension was just as thick. Council leader Zektar sat across from Ambassador Dongwu with the other alien leaders arranged around the circular table. For the first time in galactic history, the most powerful beings in known space were negotiating with a single human, and they all knew who really controlled the situation. Dongwu sat comfortably in his chair with a datapad containing Earth's detailed terms. In front of him, the alien leaders shifted nervously in their seats. Without their usual grand setting and theatrical displays, they looked smaller and more vulnerable than ever before. Before we discuss the details, Dongwu said calmly, I want you to understand something. This is not about revenge or punishment. Earth has no desire to see galactic civilization collapse. But we also will never again be treated as second-class citizens. Zektar's compound eyes reflected his anxiety. What exactly are humanity's requirements for returning? Dongwu activated his datapad and began reading. First, the 50 billion credit penalty is permanently cancelled. Earth owes nothing for the Kepler incident. Furthermore, the Council formally acknowledges that our colonists acted in self-defense against an unprovoked attack. Agreed immediately, Zektar said, before any other counselor could object. Second, all restrictions on human expansion are lifted permanently. Human colonies have the same rights and protections as any council member world. Any attempt to limit human settlement or development will be considered an act of aggression. The Vorthek delegates' teeth clicked dangerously, but there must be some limits on expansion. What if humans want to settle in areas we consider strategically important? Then you can negotiate with us as equals, Dongwu replied. Just as you would with any other council member, we are not asking for special privileges, only equal treatment. Third, Dongwu continued, humanity receives full voting membership on the Galactic Council with all associated rights and responsibilities. We will have the same voice in galactic affairs as any other major species. This caused immediate protests from several aliens. The Nexari senator's crystal skin flashed angry red colors. Your species has only been spacefaring for a few hundred years. Most council members have thousands of years of experience that has led to the current crisis. Dongwu pointed out smoothly. Your thousands of years of wisdom somehow missed the fact that you had become completely dependent on a species you considered inferior. The room fell uncomfortably silent as the truth of his words sank in. Fourth, any species that attacks, threatens, or discriminates against human colonies or citizens will face immediate and complete economic sanctions. Every human in the galaxy will cease all work, trade, and cooperation with the aggressor until full reparations are made, and guarantees of future conduct are provided. The Merendi representative oozed visible distress. You're essentially giving humanity the power to destroy any species. Economically, we already have that power, Dongwu said quietly. The past 2 weeks have proven it. We are simply asking that it be formally recognized so that everyone understands the consequences of hostile actions. What about our current crisis? Asked the Draconian ambassador. When will human workers return to restore our systems? That depends on how quickly you can ratify these agreements, Dongwu replied. Human specialists are standing by to return to their positions, but only after the new treaties are signed and implemented. How can we be sure humans will not abuse this? Power demanded the Zirethi delegate. How can we be sure you will not try to restrict or punish us again? Dongwu countered. That is why these agreements must be permanent and binding. Any attempt to modify or circumvent them will result in immediate human withdrawal with no possibility of return. Zektar looked around the table at his fellow counselors, the desperation in. 6 months later, the galaxy was humming with activity once again. Human ships moved along the trade routes, their crews working alongside alien partners who now treated them with genuine respect. The research stations were operational, the medical facilities were staffed, and the great projects that had been abandoned were moving forward once more. But things were different now. Humans weren't just useful workers anymore. They were partners, innovators, and leaders. Captain Yuna now commanded a joint human-alien exploration fleet, searching for new worlds to settle. Dr. Haijin had been appointed as the galaxy's first director of interspecies medicine, with authority over medical policy across all member worlds. The quantum fold project that Minho had been working on was complete, and the first faster-than-light communications array was being tested. The breakthrough had come when human intuition was combined with alien precision, creating something neither species could have achieved alone. On Earth, President Su Young stood in her office, looking out at the busy spaceport where ships from dozens of worlds came and went. The recall had been necessary, but she was glad it was over. Humanity belonged among the stars, working with other species to build something greater than any of them could create alone. "Ma'am," her aide said, entering with a datapad. "The quarterly economic reports are in. Human trade volume is up 400% from pre-crisis levels. And the colony applications? Over 3,000 new settlement requests. The Council has approved them all." Su Young smiled. The crisis had been painful, but it had achieved something that decades of diplomacy couldn't: true equality. Humans were no longer the junior partners in galactic civilization. They were full members with all the rights and responsibilities that came with that status. In the council chambers, Ambassador Dongwu took his seat at the circular table. The chair was new, placed between the Nexari and Vorthek representatives. His nameplate read Terra, voting member, in the flowing script of the galactic standard language. "The council recognizes Ambassador Dongwu of Terra," announced Zektar, his tone respectful rather than condescending. "Thank you, Council Leader," Dongwu replied. "I'd like to propose a joint research initiative to study the effects of solar radiation on Class M planets. Earth scientists believe we can develop better protection for all species." The proposal was approved unanimously. These days, when humans offered to share their knowledge, everyone listened. As the session continued, Dongwu reflected on how much had changed. The recall had been a desperate gamble, but it had worked. Humanity had proven its worth not through conquest or intimidation, but by simply showing what the galaxy would be like without them. The lesson had been learned by everyone involved. Cooperation wasn't just about being nice to each other. It was about recognizing that every species brought something unique and valuable to the table. The humans had brought creativity, adaptability, and problem-solving skills that complemented the strengths of other races. But more than that, they had brought something that the galaxy had been missing: the willingness to challenge the status quo. The other species had grown comfortable with their established ways of doing things. Humans asked, why, and what if, in ways that opened up new possibilities. Now, as ships full of human colonists headed out to new worlds, as human scientists worked alongside alien researchers, and as human traders built new economic partnerships, the galaxy was more vibrant and dynamic than it had ever been. The Council had learned that diversity wasn't just a nice ideal, it was a practical necessity. And humanity had learned that sometimes the best way to gain respect was to be willing to walk away from those who didn't appreciate you. The stars were calling, and this time humanity was answering as an equal partner in the greatest adventure of all.